I'm sat here by the fireplace, and nothing makes me feel more safe, more sure than to gaze into the soft glow, to feel the warmth of the fire lay flat across my face, my hands, my skin, emptying out all the worries within. There's peace in knowing that no matter how hard it snows, I'll carry this warmth in my bones. I'll rest with it in folds around me and wake up tomorrow when the ice has made its trip back home. Welcome to Games in the Glade, a stress-free gaming news and reviews podcast. I'm your host, Tina Kelly, and I'll guide you through some of the recent news in the gaming world, and give my review a game I think you'll enjoy. Today I'll be discussing Validate and Sucker for Love, two upcoming visual novels, the new indie publisher Super Rare Originals, the Unapologetically Black and Fast event, which is an upcoming charity speedrun, the Bloodborne PS1 Demake, Hades, the Steam Deck, some games coming to subscription services in February, and the PlayStation acquisition of Bungie. I'll be reading your responses to last week's question about your favorite video game soundtracks, giving part 2 of my review of Death's Door, the game that the Friends of the Forest voted for on Patreon, and finishing up by asking you about the best first boss in a video game. Now for the news. Visual novel fans have a feast awaiting them in 2022. First up, Validate is a romantic visual novel developed and published by Veritable Joy Studios, led by Danny Launders. Here's what grabbed me about Validate. Everyone is an adult, and you'd be shocked how big of a deal this is. Even better though, Validate's cast shines bright, with more than just a selection of white gals in different wigs. You've got Malik, who's Ghanaian, Amhari, who's Qatari and South African, Inaya, who's Pakistani, Isabel, who's Cuban-Chilean, Yolanda, who's French-Korean, Arihi, who's Samoan-American, Rocky, who's Black and Chinese, Biggs, who's African-American, Anoki, who's Dakota Native American, Alonzo, who's Afro-Puerto Rican, Ashley, who is Ecuadorian and Lao, Catherine, who's Afro-Dominican, and Keaton, who's Italian. It's got bi folks, it's got gay folks, lesbians, trans people, non-binary, gender-fluid characters, and it's got a great sense of humor and dialogue that isn't a chore to work through. And also, honestly, this is a little dorky of me to say, but the lead dev loves the Ace Attorney franchise, so that's an instant get for me. I think I'm going to buy this and review it for a future episode, so I will let you know what I think of it. Validate will be available on Steam, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and itch.io in August of this year. I'll leave a link to the Steam page for Validate in the description of this episode. Another visual novel that caught my eye is Sucker for Love, First Date, which is a Lovecraftian dating sim featuring Lynetta, who looks a good bit like Cthulhu to me, Estier, who reveals himself to be the King in Yellow, and Nyanthotep, aka Nyan. It's your duty to serve these ancient gods as best as you can, and that means smooching. Developed by Akabaka and published by Dread XP, who you might have heard of. They publish a Dread X horror collection, it seems like every year now. Sucker for Love first intrigued me with its anime opening style musical trailer, which you've got to see for yourself. The trailer and the game both seem to have a high production value, and the game itself has a full voice cast for the characters, which should make for a more immersive and better streaming experience. There are some rumors that the developers will add a few more ancient cuties in the future, but in the meantime, you can try your luck with these 3 lovely eldritch ladies today, because Sucker for Love is already available on Steam. I'll be linking to the Steam page, which also has the musical trailer for the game, in the description of this episode. Super Rare Games, a company that releases limited print games in physical form, announced that they're getting into the digital indie game publishing industry under the name Super Rare Originals as of late January, with 5 original titles on their roster ready for release this year. Let me talk about some of the titles that got coming soon, because these are really cute. One of their titles coming soon is Grapple Dog, a cute platformer by Joseph Gribben, starring a dog named Pablo with a grappling hook and a penchant for adventure. I love the style of this one because it kind of reminds me of those old Game Boy Advance games. There's also The Gecko Gods by Louis Waloszek, a game in which you are a cute gecko exploring the little nooks and crannies of a mysterious island, and it looks super precious. If you've ever wondered what the life of a lizard is like, this looks like a fun way to find out. And one last selection among the 5 offerings is Post Void, an arcade-style first-person shooter by YCJY Games, where your goal is to fill your idol with liquid by killing things as you bolt through each level. It's got kind of a cool, grungy, hypercolor aesthetic like last year's indie hit Cruelty Squad. So if that interests you, give Post Void a try when it releases. If you want to learn more about Super Rare Originals or about their upcoming digital titles, or if you want to check out their catalog of physical releases, I'll link to their website in the description of this episode. Last episode, I got to chat a whole bunch about Awesome Games Done Quick, the winter speedrunning event that benefits the Prevent Cancer Foundation. And if that got you interested in watching more speedrunning, I have got great news for you. Games Done Quick is hosting the Unapologetically Black and Fast event February 12th and 13th. That's the weekend right before Valentine's Day. The event showcases the abundance of Black talent in the speedrunning community with 12 hours of content each day for you to enjoy. The schedule for the event goes up on February 1st, which is the same day that this episode is released. So go check out which games will be played at gamesdonequick.com/hotfix. I'm absolutely going to be listening to the event all weekend, and I hope you do too. You might find your favorite new streamer. Okay, Bloodborne fans, rejoice. The Bloodborne PS1 style demake by Lilith Walther, aka Botster, is finally out now. Now, the project is not affiliated with FromSoft, Japan Studios, or Sony. It's entirely a fan project built from the ground up, a demake of Bloodborne. If you're not familiar with demakes, you might be familiar with remakes, which is when a studio takes a previous older project and recreates it with better graphics and sometimes a new engine to make it perform and look better. A demake, on the other hand, is when a game designer takes a modern game and reimagines it for older hardware. Like, what if Pokemon Sword and Shield was on Game Boy? What if Breath of the Wild was on N64? One of my favorite demake Twitters to follow is @the_regressor, who does low poly renders of characters like Bayonetta, Samus Aran, and even bringing to life the obscure female Link that was a promotional image in a Japanese magazine, complete with every outfit Link has worn in a Zelda game, but on this cool pink-haired, obscure Link. Demakes are a nostalgic's dream come true, and Lilith Walther's Bloodborne PS1 Demake is just that. What if we had Bloodborne on the PS1? How would it run? How does the technology available at the time alter what you can do in a game? Can systems like the transforming weapon mechanic in Bloodborne, which, by the way, defines it starkly against other Souls titles, can that still perform on a PS1 instead of a PS4? And stylistically, what can be rendered graphically to capture the essence of Yharnam and its nightmarish creatures? Walther's Demake marries style and function beautifully in a way that'll satisfy fans of retro games and Bloodborne fans. I'm actually going to play this one this week. It's my reward for recording and editing this podcast when I have some off time, some mythical off time, and I might even review it for an upcoming episode. And one last thing, the dev for this project is trans femme, so please support this trans woman's project by downloading it, playing it, and sharing it with your friends. And even though the project is not monetized, yes, the game is completely free, consider buying some of Lilith's other games if you enjoyed this one, because the effort that went into this project should be recognized. I'll include a link to the games page on itch.io in the description of this episode. I've got some hot limited time news for you. To celebrate the Lunar New Year, Hades, my game of the year for 2020, is on sale until February 3rd on Steam and the Epic Game Store. I've talked about the genre-breaking roguelike on a previous episode when it won a Hugo Award. It's a game about trying to find your place in the world, even if it's the underworld, and forging relationships through difficulty, especially if you're the one who messed things up, and also about fighting your dad. I played Hades as I was recovering from surgery in October of 2020. I really couldn't do much else besides lay in bed, anyways, and Hades was the most incredible way to pass the time. I gobbled it up playing for hours on the Switch. And even though I'm not normally a fan of roguelikes because I hate being set back and I hate losing progress, Hades had a system of incremental character growth that clicked for me. I was becoming stronger and learning how to play better with each run. Even better than that, though, every run meant I could meet a new character, learn more about old friends, and find new trinkets that might improve my relationships with the gods that lingered in the Hall of Hades. The character focus of Hades really made the game for me, and it's incentivized very well because improving your relationship with a character grants you better bonuses and greater strength as you try to escape from the depths of hell. Now, Hades isn't the only game on sale right now as a part of the Lunar New Year event on Steam, so if you've been waiting on buying something, now is a perfect time to check out the sales. I'll be linking to Hades' Steam page in the description of this episode. Speaking of Steam, the Steam Deck, Valve's first foray into handheld gaming PCs, will launch February 25th. This portable PC has the form factor of a Switch, with an AMD processor, giving it the power to play computer games without compromising on frame rate or quality. When you boot up your Steam Deck, you can play any game in your library, and your save files transfer over, so you can pick up right where you left off, whether you're at home or on the go. This is really exciting for me because there's a ton of great indies I want to play for this here podcast you're listening to, but I don't always want to be sitting at my computer. I am already sitting way too much in my room, but not every game comes out right away for the Switch. I'm considering getting a Steam Deck for myself, but I want to see how the reviews turn out before I buy one. At $400 for the base model, it is quite an investment to make, but if you've wanted to try PC gaming but can't afford like a beefy rig, this might be the midway point for you. If you out there listening to this have a Steam Deck or are getting a Steam Deck and you want to let me know your thoughts on it, please tweet at Games in the Glade with your impressions of the Steam Deck because I would love to hear it. And if you want to comb through the specs, you can find more information on the website that I will link in the description of this episode. Oh, additionally, Wario64 on Twitter has a running thread of games that are not currently playable on the Steam Deck, including Persona 4 and Job Simulator. So if you're considering purchasing the Steam Deck, maybe check that list out before you pull the trigger. I'll link to that thread in the description as well. Okay, how about games you can play this month with subscription services? Now, this is a PSA to those of you who are paying your monthly fees to use your services or cut them. If you're not satisfied with your selection, please save your money for a big game you're actually excited about. Okay, now with that out of the way, here's what PlayStation is offering for PS Plus this month. You've got UFC 4 for the PS4, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, a Wonderland's one-shot adventure for the PS4, and Planet Coaster Console Edition for the PS5. As for Xbox Game Pass, see, I didn't say Games Pass there. Are you proud of me? Anyway, Dreamscaper, which is an action roguelike by Afterburner Studios, Besiege, which is a physics-based building game by Spiderling Studios, and Edge of Eternity, an RPG by Midgar Studio, will be available on console by February 10th, and Total Warhammer Warhammer 3 will be available on PC on February 17th. The new snowboarding title Shredders will launch on Game Pass on day 1 in February, but there's no set date of release for that just yet. Midway through the month, there will be more announcements for games coming to Game Pass, so keep an eye out for that. And now, some breaking news as of January 31st, the day I am writing and recording this. MLB The Show 22, which was a franchise exclusive to PlayStation for a good time, will now be launching on Game Pass Day 1, which will be April 5th, 2022. This is exciting for me as a baseball fan. I loved MLB The Show. and I love baseball, but I don't love it enough to buy a brand new copy of MLB The Show every year, especially since it kind of has that sports game syndrome. The rosters change, but the mechanics, I mean, it's baseball. Sometimes it just feels the same. I currently have 2 free months of Game Pass, which expires in the middle of February, but I would absolutely pay, the $10 monthly fee to play the show for like a few days or weeks until I get bored of it. So exciting stuff. Even if you have no interest in baseball, if you actually do have Game Pass come April 5th, give the show a try. The character creator is totally wild. Thanks to Lloyd Coombs on Dexerto for the information on the upcoming Game Pass titles. A link to that article will be included in the description of this episode. I'll also link to the Xbox blog post about MLB The Show 22's launch on Game Pass. I've got some breaking news as of the day I am editing this. Bungie, the American video game studio behind the original Halo franchise and the more recent hit looter shooter series Destiny, has been acquired by Sony Interactive Entertainment for $3.6 billion. I'm saying that with the pinky up towards my lips that you can't see. According to Bungie CEO Pete Parsons in a blog post, the company will be continuing to publish and creatively develop their own games. This also means that Bungie as a company is not going to be releasing just PlayStation console games. They've vowed to keep Destiny 2 a multi-platform game in their frequently asked questions about the acquisition, as well as all future content produced for the game through 2024. Cross-platform play and cross-saves will remain in place and functional, so know that if you're a Destiny fan, it seems that functionally nothing will change for you. Thanks to Jay Peters for the article, Sony is buying Bungie, on The Verge for the information about the price of this acquisition. I'll link to that article, as well as the Bungie blog post and frequently asked questions, in the description of this episode. Last episode, I asked you all what your favorite video game soundtracks were, and I got such an overwhelming response that I cannot cover everyone's answers in one episode, so I will be revisiting your musical favorites in future episodes. Now to start, let me address Curious Joy, which is at Curious Joy, who said Final Fantasy, which one? Yes. Chrono Trigger, Nier, which one? Yes. And honorable mention, Super Castlevania 4. I got a lot of Final Fantasy recommendations. I don't know if there has been a Final Fantasy game that has a bad soundtrack yet, judging by your answers. And I don't know if anybody else recommended Castlevania, but I would imagine that the music is instrumental to setting the mood for the environments there. I do want to latch onto what Joy is dishing out about the Nier franchise because, yes, absolutely, the soundtracks are incredible. The Song of the Ancients is so mesmerizing. Here's a little clip. Oh, the vocals by Emmy Evans, they get me every time. Nier's music, composed by Keiichi Okabe, is so important for Nier's original release. The environments, I love Nier, by the way. Big fan. Big fan. But the environments in the original Nier were not much to brag about. They were unique, of course, but the textures were kind of unimpressive, the colors were a bit dreary, except for the seafront town, and the landscapes were very open and sometimes kind of sparse. If you play the game on mute, I think you might drop it after 2 hours. But the music fills the world. It stitches it together. It gives color to the places and the people. Every town in Nier is flavored with its own perfect song. It's a defining piece of the puzzle that makes up Nier. And the soundtrack is so deep in Nier's DNA that many of the compositions for the original game were reworked for the sequel, Automata. Okay, next up, here's the submission from Alex_KidKR. He says he came prepared with samples. Excellent work, Alex. The old song he recommended was Dragon Roost Island from Zelda the Wind Waker. He highlighted a section for me, and the new soundtrack from 2015, The Foundation from Final Fantasy XIV, and highlighted a section. Now, everybody take note. Alex included YouTube videos and timestamps because he's an actual literal angel from heaven who wants me to get some sleep and not stay up until 6 a.m. editing this video. As noted before, Final Fantasy's music is unparalleled, and Final Fantasy XIV is no exception to that. The Foundation song, which Alex linked, was really bombastic and powerful. Just the right mood for a grand city in an award-winning expansion of an MMO with a free trial and so on and so forth with the meme. Right, okay, we get it. The Wind Waker theme that Alex picked out also has powerful energy, but is arranged a little differently. There's something really adventurous about Dragon Roost Island. Let's give it a listen. So energetic, and the pipe soars above the choppy waters of that acoustic guitar strumming away. I love the castanets in there piecing it up. It feels so alive. Dragon Roost Island is just full of possibility and adventure, and it's such a good pick, Alex. And I feel like the Wind Waker soundtrack would be great for working to or like cleaning your house to, so I'm gonna add it to my playlist of songs to listen to while I'm vacuuming. Next, both Slaw Saunders and Al Ron on Twitter both said that their favorite soundtrack of all time was Final Fantasy Tactics, with Sean also giving a nod to Xenoblade Chronicles. And I knew we wouldn't be able to get by today without a sample from Final Fantasy, but I was not sure which track to pull from Tactics because I haven't actually played the game yet. Now, my brother would play it all the time when we were kids, but until last year, I genuinely thought I was too dumb to play tactics games. And this is coming from a woman with a master's degree in English and a fake degree in being good at video games. It was only until I played Fire Emblem Three Houses that I was like, oh, I'm not bad at tactics games. I'm just bad at playing chess against my brother who read and memorized every Bobby Fischer chess book by age 13. So I'm definitely going to play Final Fantasy Tactics by the end of this year, but I don't have the experience at the moment to pick a track. Instead of risking picking the wrong track or spoiling myself with music titles, I reached out to a friend who's an expert in all things retro with a specialty in music. Lodi, who goes by, you guessed it, Lodi, on YouTube and Twitch, has been making video game music compilations for over a decade, in addition to making AMVs and also producing his own music. He selected Antidote from Final Fantasy Tactics, so let's give that a listen. He said about the music for Tactics that it had melancholic songs for the battles, which really drove home the direness of the fights and made you feel for the characters and their struggles. I definitely feel that here with Antidote. There's a real complexity to the composition. I feel like you can feel the surging personalities trying to best each other in the song, with their resolution to battle ringing out in that last sustained note. As a player, a song like this would make me feel like I was actually going to win. And then right after this clip, the song gives the player space to think and strategize with a less complicated section. It's well crafted as a battle theme. And this is making me really look forward to playing Tactics. So thank you to Slaw Saunders, Alron, and Lodi for the encouragement. Okay. Here's the last selection of this episode, but I promise you I'm going to make this a recurring segment because I loved all of your suggestions. Last up is Molly Olive, who volunteered a whole host of recommendations. Bloodborne, Skyrim, Minecraft Alpha, Quest 64, and Extreme G2. Her honorable mentions were Death's Door. Woo! I'll be talking about that later. Sorry. Mass Effect 3, Fallout 3, and Need for Speed Underground 2. Bloodborne I am going to have to revisit because I am wild about that game and its music, and also a bunch of other people said Bloodborne, so you are not alone. there's a lot of us out there. Skyrim is an interesting pick to me. If you're a Skyrim fan, I would love to hear from you about your favorite tracks. Tweet them at me at Games in the Glade or recommend them to me in the YouTube comment section, because I have never heard anybody talk about the music in Skyrim. I had not heard of Quest 64, so I looked it up, and it's so adorable. If I had that as a kid, I would have not have played any other video game. And this is going to sound ignorant, but I didn't know Minecraft had music. I literally had no idea. Again, what are the good tracks of that? I'd love to hear. I might have to ask a friend of mine, Shadow Temple, that's Shadow no W _ Temple, who does voice acting for Minecraft stuff on YouTube, about like his favorite tracks. I don't know. He might be like totally sick of Minecraft stuff, but in terms of like vanilla things, I don't know. Or maybe not. Maybe he loves it. Finally, Molly mentioned Extreme G2. This one got me really intrigued because Molly said it occupies a lot of space in her brain. So I listened to some of it when I was writing the script for this episode, and it is super groovy. You gotta give it a listen. Right? Like super groovy, a total jam. It's got very fun drum and bass stuff. Without knowing anything about Extreme G2, I had envisioned when I was listening to this that it was a racing game, just from the feel of the music. And dead on, it is absolutely a racing game. It sounds like the perfect stuff to feel like a total badass to when you're taking like a tight turn. So great suggestion, Molly. And great suggestions, everyone. I do really, like I said before, I want to get around to everyone's responses eventually. So if you did not hear your recommendation in here, it might come up in a future episode. All right. It's time to get into what I loved about Death's Door. Last episode, during my review of Acid Nerve's latest offering, I talked about the incredible combat, the health recovery mechanics, the design of the game, and a bit more. That was all spoiler-free. Today I'll be talking about the themes, the music, and the post-game sequence. Death's Door is about the tension between life and death, as well as the tension between responsibility and will. It is your duty as a crow in the service of the Ministry of Death to end the lives of beings and return their souls to the Aether. Some souls go on for a little too long for one reason or another. Some wish to die, but cannot, like Stedhone the Gravedigger. His job is to eulogize the dead before burying them, yet he himself cannot die. There is a part of him that can't let go of life, no matter how hard he tries. Others find ways to avoid death. So broken was the ceramic witch by her beloved's death that she turned her loved ones into urns, just to escape the eye of death. That way they can live forever with her. But her grandson did not want this eternal life as an urn, and in his attempt to evade her spell, she turned his head into a pot of soup. Even the Lord of Locks himself, who watches over the actions of the Ministry of Death and the Assemblage of Crows, wants to break the cycle of life and death that he himself should be subjected to. He struggles with the pressure of balancing the forces of life and death, the weight of the systems he must upkeep, and with the horror of knowing the exact day and the exact way that he'll die. And though he knows, he does everything he can to fight it, even sealing death itself behind a door. You see characters in this game losing themselves to the struggle of mortality, like the Grey Crow who spends so much of his life trying to open death's door to find his assigned soul to reap, only to get inside the door and find that that soul has long been subsumed into the Aether, rendering his mission impossible and his life forfeit. It's a compelling exploration of a theme that isn't new to Souls-likes, of course, but where other Souls-likes choose to pursue the theme through environmental storytelling and item lore descriptions, I quite enjoy Death's Door's direct approach using a surface narrative, having character dialogue that addresses the themes, and even bringing in boss eulogies to celebrate the life and death of each titanic soul that passed. I can't decide what my favorite part of Death's Door is, so I'm just going to call every part my favorite part, and the music is my next favorite part. Let's talk about the leitmotif work in Death's Door. The music in this game is so iconic because it explores a theme in many variations. The main theme for the game, titled of course, Death's Door, is extraordinarily powerful. There's a tension to it, a struggle that's overcome. To me, it feels like climbing up a mountain, reaching the top and soaring all the way down. Yet all those same notes can be reused in such a way to keep both the identity consistent, yet still produce a piece that feels entirely different. Like the song that plays on the menu screen of Death's Door titled The Crows. On the menu, it shows your character at their desk at the commission headquarters, drumming their little feathery fingers on the desk while other crows work around them. The song plays as the game awaits your input. It's heavier, more controlled, melancholy. It moves beautifully, though methodically, to its conclusion, with little hope woven through of deviation from the norm. It's a lot like the work that the crows perform at the commission, taking souls, ending lives. It's all a job, with melancholy as a given for the profession. And their workplace reflects the mood too. Everything is grayscale. Everyone is in their place, at their desks. Only your character decorates their desk with trinkets that they found on their journeys. Everything else is devoid of color and personality. The music matches this so wonderfully. I honestly could not get enough of this song, and I waited on the menu screen for a long time before each play session just to hear the music. And that's the menu music. It inspired me to buy this game in the first place. I had heard it on a friend's stream, Okadrian on Twitch, I've talked about him before, and I thought, dang, am I really about to buy this game because of the menu theme? And then I did, and I have no regrets. The first thing that you fight in this game is a boss, and that boss, a forest spirit that has long outlived its natural lifetime, dances to a variation of the main theme. And once again, the theme explores the personality of the subject of the song, this time the forest spirit. It swirls with shimmery chimes, it sways with the strings, it dances with the wind instruments. There's a kind of wilderness to the pipes that play in the background, and the galloping melody that carries the song to its conclusion. The song is as vibrant and alive as the ballerina-like spirit you're sent to reap. It's a contrast to the next song to repurpose the theme, The Lost Cemetery, which is somber and distant, foreboding and grand. It teases you in, giving you a taste of the familiar, a few little breadcrumbs to peck at as you explore this new world. The Lost Cemetery is a hub from which the spokes of the other worlds jut off. You can reach the Ceramic Witch's Manor, the Frog King's domain, and the lofty Lockstone Mountains from this world progressively as you gain more abilities to traverse the land. It's a daunting, sprawling mix of graves and ramparts, spires and hollows. It's studded with enemies and secrets, but it's the perfect, true starting place and returning place, just familiar enough to invite you in, and just strange enough to keep you exploring. It's the same with its theme. When the Lost Cemetery breaks away from the main theme, it spins out into a wide open world. There's so much space to enjoy the melody, space to appreciate the refraining notes, but also space to explore a new direction with the theme. I think the music is a remarkable invitation to the player to take what they've learned and go someplace new. There are plenty of other songs in Death's Door that have a similar directive feel. They guide the player somehow. The song Betty, for instance, which plays as you fight Betty the Yeti, works seamlessly with Betty's fight pattern. As a part of her attack cycle, Betty rolls into a ball and launches herself at your character, slamming into it or slamming into the wall that's behind it and bouncing back to the center to repeat her attack 2 more times. Thematically, her boss music echoes this. The surge of effort, the tension and release, the music launches forward, just like Betty. This kind of consistency sticks out to me, not just because it's a lovely song, but it feels as if it's guiding the player's attention towards that pattern, warning them to wait until things die down a bit to attack. Now, I could talk endlessly about the music in Death's Door. I haven't even covered some of my favorite songs like Shall We Dance or The Mushroom Dungeon, but I think the soundtrack is an integral part of the game. It's so present. It's what I'll remember most strongly about this title. I will never forget that menu music. David Fenn did an incredible job with the soundtrack, and I look forward to his future offerings. Alright, I've been a little spoilery, but trying to stay in the shallow end of the pool. Let's wade into the deep end and discuss the post-credits of Death's Door. The emphasis of the postgame is less on combat and more on interacting with the world and exploring it fully. At the very beginning of the game, and also at the end, you run into a bell tower that's locked away behind a rusty gate, the key to which you can only receive by beating the Lord of Locks. When you strike the bell in the postgame, the world shifts from day to night, making a few key changes. First, there are far fewer enemies, which makes exploration and backtracking to find missing items far more simple. It's a welcome change since your focus for the postgame is not to become stronger, but to better understand the world and its inhabitants. The day-night change brings new puzzles to solve using background elements of the environment that you can't interact with during the day, like the statues of the Lord of Locks in the cemetery. During the day, they stand silently in the background, watching over staircases or bridges, but at night, they become the receptacles for wandering keyhole spirits. When you guide each spirit into its statue, they meld with it, giving the Lord of Locks' keyhole face a brilliant pink glow. And when each spirit rests within its statue, a huge door, which was there even during the day, opens, revealing a tablet of truth inside. Collecting these tablets is your goal in the endgame as you seek to discover the truth behind the Lord of Locks' quest to evade death, the origin of the first door, and also what fate awaits you, the foretold Crow. Now, those details I'll leave to those of you who choose to play the game yourselves. I think it's a nice reward for completing the game. The change to night triggers some interesting encounters, as with Jefferson the Squid, a cephalopod who strapped himself to the dead body of the only fully human thing I think is in the game, the ceramic witch not included. He poses as a restaurant owner and offers you hints on hidden items when the sun is up, but under the light of the moon, you and he embark on a quest on foot, no use of doors allowed, into the realm of the Frog King to find the moon-shrouded secret of the depths, reuniting Jefferson with his fellow squids. It's another unique puzzle to solve, challenging the player to avoid using the titular mechanic of the game, traveling through doors to far-off parts of the world, and instead use their memory of the many interconnecting, though far-off lands, to finish the mission. Finally, the change to night brings closure to some of the stories that were left unresolved before the credits, such as Stedhone the Gravedigger's story. Stedhone, who is obviously a play on headstone, the object strapped to his head, visits you after every boss fight, eulogizing the defeated boss, remembering what made them great and what made them terrible. It's a thoughtful touch, one that I haven't seen done anywhere else. Normally, boss fights end in a triumphant rush of adrenaline as your foe finally falls. But in Death's Door, I found myself more looking forward to Stedhone's mournful final words than the reward of souls to convert to level upgrades. And Stedhone teaches you to fight too, giving you a tutorial at the very beginning about advanced techniques and different strikes to do more damage. All in service, he explains, of you becoming strong enough to take him down and end his unnaturally long life. But nothing works. It turns out it's not strength that's required, it's closure. See, Stedhone buried his best friend under the light of the moon in the old mountainous watchtowers, and when night finally triggers in the postgame, you can return to his friend's grave and retrieve a locket that's brimming with energy. It's a locket with a picture of Stedhone and his loyal best friend. Bringing it back to Stedhone will lead to what is, to my memory, the only boss fight in the post-game. A last stand with the man who has ushered so many others to their final rest. It's thoughtful, touching, and just challenging enough. So, that is all I have to say about Death's Door. It's a lot to cover for a game that honestly will not take you that long to beat. It's a game that's going to stick with me for a long while, and I hope you give it some time yourself too. Death's Door and the Bloodborne Demake had me thinking about boss fights, particularly the first boss you encounter in a video game. In Bloodborne, Father Gascoigne is the first wall that many players hit that forces them to learn to parry, or to use items in interesting ways. In Death's Door, the Forest Spirit is your first introduction to combat, and its patterns teach you how to roll, attack, and use your magic to hit it from a distance. So, I was wondering, what's the best first boss or tutorial boss from a video game? Do we have any Toriel fans out there? Maybe Taurus Demon fans? Maybe Girahim from Twilight Princess? What bosses got your act together and how? If you'd like to respond, you have a few options. You can respond to the tweet I'm going to put out, or you can tweet directly at Games in the Glade on Twitter using the GITGasks hashtag. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave a comment below in the video. That's all I have for you today. Normally, this is where I would say that there will be more news and reviews every other week, but this month I'll be spending some time with my aunt. I'll keep the details light to maintain the calm atmosphere of the show, but my aunt needs intensive at-home care. The next episode of Games in the Glade will be March 1st, giving me enough time to take care of my aunt, take care of my own family, and maybe squeeze in some time to take care of myself. Until then, though, you can follow the show's Twitter account at Games in the Glade for updates and more. This podcast is supported by Friends of the Forest on Patreon, a link for which I'll leave in the description. Thanks to Puddles of Infinity for the use of their song Porches and Universes, and thank you Titse for the beautiful album art. And even though our time together is drawing to an end, you can always find your way back here, my world-worn weary friend. There's a spot here in the clearing, in the quietude and shade, for you to relax a while and listen to Games in the Glade.